Alrighty guys, it is go time. Welcome to the webinar tonight. Tonight guys, we're chatting about, and I'm sharing with you my 5-step decision-making process. Now, what I want you guys to realize is this is a new presentation for me. I haven't done this one like the Secret to Perfect Landings. I've done that, literally all over the world, certainly at Sun and Fun in Oshkosh. This presentation, I first did a similar presentation like this on the aviation seminar at sea. I don't know if he's on the webinar. I don't know. I don't see Bob just yet. But I did the presentation, and I tested out on the crowd on the aviation seminar at sea this year. And they said, man, Jason, and Bob said, Jason, that's a really good presentation. You should really, consider sharing that, with some more people and everything. I said, wow, that's a great idea. This is a little more advanced than I actually shared on the cruise because we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some stuff because we're going to have the time to do that. And I want to share with you guys what goes through my crazy head every time when making a go or no-go decision. And more importantly, making a smart go or no-go decision. So real quick, some ground rules first and foremost. The goal is to have this webinar under an hour. I said that yesterday too, and went about 2 hours long, but we did about an hour presentation and about an hour of questions. You're going to want to have pen, paper, something to drink. This is being recorded, so if you have to leave early, you come in late. If you missed yesterday, don't worry, the Secret to Perfect Landings webinar was recorded as well, so you guys can check that out. I'm assuming all you guys can hear me A-okay and everything's good. I kind of adjusted the mic a little bit more in front of me. I listened to the audio back on the Secret to Perfect Landings, and I'm one of those guys, as you can tell from the videos, I talk with my hands, I move a lot, so I'm going to try to stay stationary and keep my mouth in front of this microphone here. What else? I can't hear you. I can't see you. Kids screaming, dogs barking at your house. Can't hear it. When the dogs do start barking here, though, well, you're going to hear it again. This is like me inviting you into my house. So hope that's A-okay with you guys. Last thing, you and I communicate using that handy-dandy GoToWebinar control panel. Underneath the questions box, you can type to me. I have that coming up on a totally different screen. You can type in there, and that's how I can communicate with you guys. Whether you have a question or a comment, you can type it in there. We also have the wonderful Uncle Larry, Larry Diamond, CFII extraordinaire. And Mark, both who helped me here with MzeroA.com. Mark, sorry, I don't have a better intro for you. I got to get you a cool nickname too. But Mark and Larry are in the question board as well. They might answer a few of your questions. And if I see it, I'll try to answer those questions as well, kind of as we're going. And at the end, guys, we're going to open it up for full Q&A at the end as well. So I'm going to grab a sip of tea here real quick. And let's get rolling, guys. Let's first start. I understand a lot of you guys may have came from Facebook, Twitter. Friends said, hey, you need to go listen to this Jason at MzeroA.com guy, whatever. Let me tell you a little bit about who is Jason. What is MzeroA.com? Well, we run that flight training community, I like to call it, of MzeroA.com. We really kind of pioneered the use of cameras mounted externally for the purpose of flight training. I'm not only going to show you a steep turn in the cockpit, I'm going to show you a steep turn outside of the cockpit like you guys see here. This led to us having the #1 rated online ground school, which a lot of you guys checked out and signed up for last night. And I really, really appreciate that. Also led to us having, you only see 6 of them here, but we have 8 books, most of those being bestsellers, including Pass Your Private Pilot CHECKRIDE 2.0, The FAR Aim in Plain English, In-Flight Emergencies, the book, The Secret to Perfect Landings. Very blessed to rewrite the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, the Airplane Flying Handbook with the consent of the FAA. Alongside them, removing the old chapters on microwave landing systems and updating them with new chapters on things like GPS and modern flying, as far as that goes. So pretty cool stuff. This also led to us having the aviation seminar at sea, which we, well, not literally just got back from, but pretty darn close from getting back to that. And I'm gonna have some pictures and talk about the 3rd annual aviation seminar at sea sometime in January. And lastly, I just add this slide in here a little bit ago too. A lot of you guys don't even know we have the #1 free magazine under the professional and trade category. It's called Good Pilot Magazine. It's totally free. And listen, if you have an iPad, I need you to go to the newsstand and search for Good Pilot Magazine. Not only download it, but give it a rating, and give it an honest rating based on what you think of it. And check that out. It's another great way to download the awesome content we're producing. So what I often get asked, and I got asked it yesterday at the end of the webinar, Jason, how do you do all this stuff? You're one guy. How do you 8 books, a ground school with over 400 videos, 300 videos on YouTube? How do you do all this sort of stuff? Well, we have a wonderful team here at MzeroA.com. You can see that's myself and my lovely wife, Ashley, along with the MzeroA.com farm. You ready for this? The dogs are Pedo and Magneto, and the goats are Prop, Rudder, and Strut. Again, very aviation themed household as far as that sort of stuff goes. The real brains behind the operation, though, guys, is my lovely wife, Ashley. She does everything. I joke with people when they ask me that. I say, listen, I smile for a camera and do the aviation stuff. Ashley's the real brains behind everything. So, and you guys have met her at Sun and Fun in Oshkosh. So, anyways, guys, let's get started here real quick. I have a question for you guys. What do you look at to make your go and no-go decisions? Again, you and I communicate in that GoToWebinar control panel. We communicate in there underneath the questions box. So you can type in that. And I want to know, what do you guys look at to make those go and no-go decisions? I'm going to read a few things coming in here. Tim said, how does he feel? Oh, absolutely. Brendan, yeah, absolutely. Weather, yeah, of course. Robert said the pilot, sure. I'm assuming talking about himself, of course, here. Dan, another one, Dan, for weather. Chance, always do a self-check, like risk assessment. Very, very smart. We're going to talk about that here. Jay, use that buzzword, self-check. I like that. David, cloud level, wind speed, crosswinds. David, you must have watched an MzeroA.com video once in your life. It sounds like you know what you're talking about. Mike, yeah, you're absolutely right. Spot on. Let's see. Justo, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sean says the color of the sky. You couldn't be more correct with that, to be honest with you, Sean. Yeah, and I'm not going to read all of them. We have a ton of stuff here. But so what do we look at when making go? I got to read one more. Hold on. Where'd it go? There's so much stuff coming in here. Brent said money. Listen, man, that's real sometimes. There used to be times where I'd not only check the weather, but I have to log into the bank account to make sure I could afford to go to fly. I remember those days. Trust me. What do you look at to make go and no-go decisions? Well, what I want to share with you guys are really my 5 steps, my 5 processes, if that's the right English, that I use when making these smart go and no-go decisions. Because, guys, all accidents are a chain of events, and an accident that chain of events can be broken on the ground by not even going or making one smart decision. All it takes is one smart decision to break that chain of events. You understand what I'm saying? So what I mean is, I want you guys to learn to set smart personal minimums. You ever heard the term SMART goals? They're attainable, and they list all those things out, etc. Realistic. I want you to set smart personal minimums. And we're going to talk about that. But real quick, I want to share with you guys a quick story. Let me grab a sip of tea here real quick, because this is going to be a good one. This, guys, is literally, I don't want you to judge me here. This is literally the dumbest thing I have ever done in an airplane. I kid you not. The dumbest thing I've ever done in an airplane. I have shared this with very, very few people. I've done maybe 1 or 2 videos on it, but the videos were very early on. So chances are you may not even have heard this story before, mostly because I'm so embarrassed to share it. However, the story needs to be, shared with you guys. so you don't end up making the same mistake. If you thought yesterday's story was good about me missing a runway, and then going on to teach you about the secret to perfect landings, you're going to really like this one. So the dumbest thing I've ever done in an airplane. I was a low-time student pilot. This is like a deja vu of yesterday. Quick story, low-time student pilot. Don't they all my stories seem to start that way. That's when I made all my silly decisions. I was a low-time student pilot. At this point, I had already soloed, though. I had overcome my terrible landing. Ended up soloing, started working on cross countries, and I was able to do my first solo cross country. So I departed on literally my first solo cross country. I remember it was from the OCALA airport up to the Cross City airport. Literally, it is exactly like 51 miles. It couldn't be any more perfect. So easy. It's the perfect cross-country distance as far as that goes. All right, so from OCALA to the Cross City Airport, 51, 52 nautical miles. The minimum is 50 is what I'm getting at there. So I departed on that first solo cross-country. You know what? The weather was just okay. Anybody ever go flying and you're like, well, I mean, I could go flying, it's just average weather. It's not great weather. It's not bad weather. The weather was just okay. Well, that's a really bad way to explain weather and to make a decision by looking outside and going, yeah, I mean, I guess I could go flying. That is such a terrible thought process to have. But keep in mind, for those of you that were on the webinar yesterday, you know that early on in my training, I really had this get there-itis syndrome going on. And my get there-itis was get to the CHECKRIDE and become a private pilot because that's all I wanted to do. I rushed my first solo and ended up missing the runway. And on a day like today when the weather was just okay, when I wanted to make that cross country so I could work towards my private pilot certificate, what do you think I said? Yeah, sure. Everything should be fine, right? So I went out and I departed. And it wasn't too bad. I got up there, but you ever take off and you're like, oh, geez, the clouds are a whole lot lower than I thought, or they're a whole lot lower than the METAR said. I mean, trust me, the weather people, whether it's a flight service station or the weather guy on TV, they're not always right. And we've learned that. The clouds are a lot lower than predicted. The layer was, although it was, the METAR said scattered, it was really more of a broken layer, kind of becoming an overcast layer. It was a lot lower than predicted. My weather that was just okay was deteriorating. And as I was flying closer and closer to Cross City, the clouds were getting lower and lower. So what do you think I did? Well, I just kept going lower and lower, right? Excuse me. So I kept descending lower and lower until eventually I was at 1,000 feet AGL. So I was at 1,000 feet AGL looking around and literally, I mean, I am talk about, in class echo airspace, we have 3 miles of visibility, 1,000 feet above the clouds, 500 feet below the clouds, and 2,000 feet horizontally from the clouds. Neither of which, maybe the 3 miles I had, but I certainly wasn't the 500 feet below the clouds. I was bumping the bottom of those clouds at 1,000 feet AGL. And I'm thinking, geez, these clouds are really getting low. I mean, honestly, what would be the logical thing to do in this case, guys? What would the normal person do? Not the crazy Jason who just was so adamant on, getting his pilot certificate. Absolutely, Tim. Absolutely, James. Absolutely, Matt. Jay, you're right. 180-degree turn. That's all it took. Turn around. Obviously, the weather wasn't that bad behind me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have pushed it this far, right? So 180-degree turn shouldn't be that bad. That would be the logical thing to do, wouldn't it? But what did I do? Well, I wouldn't have a story if I did the logical thing. I wish the story was I made a 180-degree turn. I landed back at the OCALA airport, and I did my cross country another day. No, I was a poor, at this point, 16, almost 17-year-old kid Didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. I had to make every flight count in my eyes. I forced it because I was worried about my pocketbook. I forced it because I was worried about, I have got to get there. I've got to do my private pilot certificate in the least amount of hours to save the most amount of money. I have got to get this thing done. So what I do, I climbed. I literally went full power and I blazed right through these clouds. Guys, when I say I was a low-time student pilot, I soloed under 10 hours. So at this point, and I should have dug up my logbook. I literally have a star next to this very flight. I probably had 10, 11 hours at this point. And I went full power and I blazed right on through those clouds. And I was climbing through the clouds and finally broke out at 4,500 feet. So here I am now, up on top, literally, VFR on top, and struggling now. I effectively just became an instrument pilot. I am sitting on top of this sea of white, clouds everywhere. And what goes through my head now? Well, maybe it'll be better at Cross City. Again, what was I thinking? The weather is getting worse and worse the further on I go in this direction. Why would it just magically get better? That's not how weather works. But you couldn't tell this 10, 11-hour student pilot, who really shouldn't have been even making this flight to begin with, you couldn't tell him that. So here I am, 4,500 feet on top of the clouds with no means of getting back down. And in this airplane, we're flying a Cherokee 140. And it had the old Apollo GPS. Those of you who've been flying for a while might know what I'm talking about. Not even color. The background was black and the pixels on it were orange. Apollo's not even a company anymore. Garmin bought them a long time ago. And I saw the Cross City Airport, and I was flying over the Cross City Airport, but I never saw it. I would look straight down, and it was solid white. There was nothing to see. And I will never forget, this is how conniving I was in my head. I don't know what psychologically was going on, but I remember circling around that airport because that little Apollo GPS left a trail, like breadcrumbs, as to where you had flown. And I thought, well, I'll circle the airport so the GPS leaves the breadcrumbs. So that way, if my instructor goes back and looks, at least it looks like I made a lap around the pattern. So I technically kind of went to Cross City, right? I never saw the Cross City Airport. What kind of attitude is that to have of somebody, certainly of a student pilot, in this case? So I decided now, well, I've got to start back. Fuel's okay. I had full fuel. I only had, 50 nautical miles to fly, basically. I started back, and as I started back, I had to keep climbing higher and higher. Now, why is that? Well, those clouds that I just blazed through and got on top are now building. This is summertime now. Those clouds, as we know, you can be on top of them all you want. IFR guys know this, but as that surface heat dissipates, those clouds are going to become those cumulus clouds, possibly leading to cumulonimbus clouds, and they're going to just keep on growing and keep on building in that case. So I had to keep climbing higher and higher. And I remember flying, and I remember looking down at that little dinky black and orange Apollo GPS 10 miles out from OCALA, and it was just a sea of white. 360 degrees. Well, I couldn't look a full 360 degrees because in a Cherokee 140, you don't have a back window. But as far as I could see, it was white. And here I am. And finally, it sinks in. And I think to myself, Jason, what are you doing? What situation did you put yourself in? You're never going to make it to be a private pilot because you're not going to survive this. What you did is just so stupid. And, I'm looking around this sea of white and I have no other option. I've got to get down. So what do I do in this case? Even stupider. I knew about flight following. I knew how to talk on the radios relatively decently. I could have just confessed that I had screwed up and contacted ATC and had them hold my hand. But I had such a macho attitude that I just started down on my own. And I remember descending through those clouds and literally saying out loud to myself, trust your instruments, trust your instruments, trust your instruments, over and over and over. I don't think I had any hood time. Again, I should go back in my logbook and actually look. I don't believe I had any hood time. I was a big flight sim kind of guy though, so I kind of had an idea of how everything should work. But what a bonehead thing to do as I'm descending through these clouds and telling myself to trust my instruments as anyone who's ever flown an actual IFR knows how easy it is to get disoriented. And as I'm descending down, finally, by an act of God, kid you not, I break out. And I look ahead, and there's the airport. There's the runway. And I land that airplane. And I remember getting out of that airplane and just shaking, like uncontrollable shaking, just between so mad at myself, so thankful to be on the ground, so what is my instructor going to say, in this case? And I remember walking back into that flight school. My instructor wasn't there, thank goodness. Thank goodness at the time. I wish she would have been there to rip me a new one, but I'd certainly learned. And I remember returning the key to the airport, or not the airport manager, the flight school manager. He said, "Hey, Jason, how was your flight?" I'm like, "Oh man, it was great. Yeah, great flight. Had a real good time." And left. I mean, what a crazy thing to have happen. And I just want to share a stat with you guys. 86% of all VFR into IMC, taking VFR, visual flight rules, I'm looking outside, into IMC, instrument conditions basically, 86% of all VFR into IMC incidents, it should say, are fatal. They end up being accidents. 86% of pilots who do exactly the stupid thing I do don't live to tell about it. I am on I'm very thankful I'm on the right side of that statistic because I made such a bonehead decision. And you know what? Listen, the bonehead decision wasn't, hey, let's go flying. The weather was just okay. The bonehead decision started when I had an option to turn around and I didn't. I had a chance to get out and I didn't. When I decided to go blazing through the clouds, when I still had a chance to get back out. All accidents are a chain of events. It's not one thing that magically happens and then boom, there's an accident. Everything is a chain, okay? Everything slowly, adds up to create that accident. Look at any of them, okay? But 86% of all VFR and IMC accidents are fatal, guys. I want that to really sink into you. And I share that story, making myself vulnerable and putting that out there to you guys. Simply so you don't make that same mistake. So when you look at the weather and you go, oh, the weather's just okay today. So you think of my story and you say, man, I don't want to make that same mistake. I don't want to put myself in that situation to even begin with. So what I want to teach you guys is, my now over 8,000 hours of experience in general aviation aircraft, in, mostly 150s, 172s, Cherokee 140s, and in teaching how I make go and no-go decisions, how I set smart personal minimums. Let me grab a sip of water. I'm going to share the very first thing with you right now. The very first thing, guys, is to have hard set numbers. If I had hard set numbers, and I'll explain what that means here in just a second, I would have never left the ground that day on my very first solo cross country. I would have never done that. You have to have these hard set numbers. Example, I will not go flying if blank. Let me show you the 3 I like to use and the 3 I want you guys to use. I will not go flying if the wind is greater than blank. I will not go flying if the clouds are lower than blank. Let me emphasize that one. The clouds, some people say, hey, the lowest broken or overcast layer, we'll call it a ceiling. I like to say, listen, if there's any clouds lower than blank, I'm not going flying. Why is that? Because here in Florida, and you know what, Florida is not unique in any means. This happens all over the United States, where that layer of few clouds quickly becomes a layer of scattered clouds, that just as easily becomes a layer of broken clouds, and before you know it, it's an overcast layer. That is how weather systems and weather patterns work, guys. So I like to say I will not go flying if the clouds are lower than blank and if the visibility is less than blank. Let me share with you, guys, you're gonna laugh at me, but these are my actual numbers. Ready for this? I will not go flying if the wind is greater than 15 knots. I primarily fly a Cessna 150. 15 knots of wind is not a fun day of flying. It's not for the weak in the stomach either. Even flying the 172, that is still a very bumpy day. That is not an enjoyable day. I fly for enjoyment. I fly to go cool places. I fly to save some time on some business trips. But if the wind is greater than 15 knots, I don't feel like getting the snot beat out of me flying around there. Now, when I'm talking at the surface here, I understand winds aloft, etc. But I'm talking, listen, if it's blowing 15 knots, and trust me, the wind is never just blowing steady at 15 knots. It's always 15 knots gusting to 21. You know, that's what I mean. I'm not going flying if the wind is greater than 15 knots. Guys, I am not going flying if the clouds are lower than 1,500 feet. And you may look and say, Jason, you're an instrument-rated pilot. You are a CFII. Why would you not go flying if the clouds are lower than 1,500 feet? Don't you want to shoot those approaches have those minimums of 200 feet? Why don't you go to 200 feet? Because in my Cessna 150, in the 172, you know, shooting approaches down to minimums is a very taxing thing to do. And neither of those aircraft are equipped to do that. If I want to shoot approaches down to minimums, you know, I want to have, you know, the best equipment available. I want to have an autopilot to help me along the way. I want to have another pilot flying with me. I don't go flying if the clouds are lower than 1,500 feet because honestly, guys, like I just shared earlier, VFR cloud clearance requirements and Class E airspace, 3 miles of visibility, 1,000 feet above the clouds, 500 feet below the clouds, and 2,000 feet horizontally from them. So if I have to maintain 500 feet below the clouds, and the clouds are at 1,500 feet, I can only fly at 1,000 feet. What can I do at 1,000 feet? Well, I can go beat up the traffic pattern. Okay, if you want to go beat up the traffic pattern, that's all we're going to do. Since we're going to stay close to the airport, I'll accept that if the clouds are at 1,500 feet. But that's about all we're going to do. I don't want to leave the airport, really, because 1,500-foot ceilings can just as easily become 1,400, 1,300, and descend, etc. Okay? And I don't go flying if the visibility is less than 9 statute miles. You know, METARs only show you up to 10 statute miles. Individuals who have seen less than 10 statute miles understand this, understand what I'm talking about. But, you know, newer pilots, a lot of times we don't have that that same perspective that because that METAR only shows, you know, 10 statute miles or greater, the visibility could be unlimited, but it just shows you 10 statute miles in that case. All right. So if the visibility is 9 statute miles or less than 9 statute miles, so we'll say 8 and under, I'm not going flying. Guys, 8 statute miles of visibility is not a lot of visibility at all. If you've ever flown in that kind of visibility, you know it's a very weird feeling because you can't see anything. I mean, aren't we used to like making our radio calls 10 miles out and you can kind of see the airport? You can't even do that in that case. All right. So I have hard set numbers that I stick to. And I want you guys to do the same thing. Now, listen, your numbers can change, guys. As you become a private pilot, they can change. When you add another 50 hours to your logbook, these numbers can change. When you add an instrument rating, these numbers can change. As you become more experienced, the numbers can change. They're not set in stone forever. These numbers can change. But I want to share with you guys 3 factors that can change my personal minimums to increase them. Once I have those hard numbers set, I don't decrease those numbers. I only increase them. Let me grab another sip of tea here real quick. So 3 factors that can change my personal minimums. The first is this. It's flying with a non-pilot. You know, guys, I want you, if you're a non-pilot, to have a great first flight. You know, the last thing I want to do is take up a friend who's maybe interested in aviation and take him or her up on a bumpy day and have them not enjoy it. You know, for example, I was talking to Greg earlier. I believe Greg's on the webinar. I got a whole lot of names. Yeah, Greg's on the webinar. I was talking to Greg earlier, and Greg's interested in getting into flying and was going to do some discovery flights. If I took Greg up flying, I want to take him up on a beautiful day. I want it to be nice and smooth. I don't want to take somebody up and have them get the snot beat out of them and go, whoa, this, you know, maybe this flying stuff's a lot more difficult than I thought, or maybe this, you know, I don't have the stomach to be a pilot. Or you take your spouse flying, and don't you want them to have a good experience so they go flying with you again? Flying with a non-pilot, I increase those personal minimums. I want to have a perfect day to take that non-pilot flying. Another reason, the second reason is here, flying in a new airplane. Anytime I jump in a new airplane, guys, I increase those personal minimums. Now, a new airplane can be anything. I may have a lot of time in Cessna 150s and 172s, but when I hop in a new to me 172, I still up my personal minimums. And you can say, Jason, you've got thousands of hours in a Cessna 172. Why are you raising your personal minimums? Why don't we just go blazing down to minimums on our instrument approach? You're IFR rated. Why don't we just do that? Well, yes, I have thousands of hours in a 172, but not in this particular one. This is a new tail number for me to have to listen to and key into on the radios and recite back. The instrument layout, the instrumentation may be different. I'm used to my RPM, my tachometer being here, and now it's down over here. Little things like that, power settings, etc. Yes, it's the same make and model, but little things can be different in that case, okay? Flying a new airplane, my personal minimums go up. And lastly, flying in an unfamiliar area. You know what? If I went down to South Florida area to fly with Mark, I wouldn't just go lollygagging around in 8 statute miles of visibility when I don't know the area very well. Flying in an unfamiliar area, I raise my personal minimums. Because if I got into a jam, I don't know what airports off bat are the best to divert to. You know, flying around Central Florida, you know, I feel like I could close my eyes and fly you to just about any airport in the Central Florida area because I've done it so much. However, take me down to the South Florida area. I haven't been to those airports as frequently. That's something that's new to me. Flying in an unfamiliar area, I increase those personal minimums, okay? So those are some things I look at, guys. You know, I have my hard number set. That was number 1. All right. You know, I'll go back so I can recap this here. Flying with a non-pilot was my number 2. Am I flying with a non-pilot? Am I flying in a new airplane is my number 3. Am I flying in an unfamiliar area is my number 4. And really the 5th thing I kind of look into and that I want you guys to start doing is this. It's called the IMSAFE checklist. Now, this is something the FAA came up with. I'm not going to bore you with the original FAA version. I'm going to give you the Jason Schappert, MzeroA.com version and share with you what I do with it. The IMSAFE checklist. All right, let's go through this real quick. I'm not asking you to write this out each and every flight. I'm asking you just to conduct a self-evaluation, to run through this in your head and, you know, kind of check this sort of stuff out. So follow along with me here. IMSAFE is an acronym, and the I stands for illness. How are you feeling that day, okay? You know, if you're not feeling so hot, if the Mexican food you had for lunch isn't treating you so well, it could be something as basic as that. I'll tell you, I made the dumbest mistake I made a long time ago. I made a very dumb mistake recently. I love flying, guys. I use any excuse to go flying. And when a very good friend of mine called me who has a Bonanza, and I adore the Bonanza as an aircraft, very, very cool airplane, and called me and said, hey, Jason, I haven't flown the Bonanza in a while. And I would just love to have somebody kind of tag along with me and just kind of watch me fly and just, get some rust off everything, very good friend of mine. So I said, absolutely. But I was in the process of just getting over a cold. I was in that part where you're no longer contagious, but you're kind of still stuffy. Your nose isn't running, but you're still kind of stuffy. And I thought to myself, I'll be okay. It's no big deal. I didn't technically pass this illness part of the IMSAFE checklist. I wasn't ill per se, but I was still stuffy. Well, of course, in a Bonanza is no fun at 2,000 feet. You got to take that Bonanza up to 8,000, 9,000 feet. And everything was fine until we started to come down. And I could not decompress. My head felt like it was going to explode. That night, guys, I kid you not, I could not sleep. I was waking up every 2 hours to take Tylenol just to fall asleep for 10 minutes and then wake up because the pressure in my head was so excruciating. When I woke up, my eyes were bloodshot. The pressure was so bad, all because of one silly decision I made to go flying when I shouldn't have gone flying. I've had students, guys, kid you not, go in to get a cavity filled, and we go flying the next day. Now, they filled that cavity. Obviously, the cavity was filled with the pressure on the ground at that day. We went flying the next day, and they said, Jason, my tooth feels like it's going to explode. So what do you mean your tooth feels like it's going to explode? I've never heard that. You go, well, I had a cavity filled yesterday. And I was thinking, oh my, and I'm putting it all together. And sure enough, that's exactly what had happened. You've got to think about these sort of things, guys. Scuba diving, all this sort of stuff. You've got to think about these sort of things. Illness, all right? It's more than just, are you vomiting and sick? You could have a runny nose and not be able to, decompress and have that problem. Mike, I love your comment, by the way. You're absolutely right. M is medication. Are you on any medication that is going to prevent you from making this safe flight? My rule of thumb is, and we're going to talk with Larry here in just a bit. Larry is a doctor of pharmacy. So who better to talk to about medication if you guys have any questions in regards to what you're taking and flying, what you're taking and getting your medical, etc. Doctor of pharmacy and happens to be a CFII. I couldn't ask for anything better. Medication, guys, my rule of thumb is if it says do not operate heavy machinery, I'm not going to go fly an airplane. But you got to think, this could be something as simple as taking an allergy medicine. You ever take an allergy medicine that has an antihistamine? It's got you feeling kind of loopy afterwards. Medication can fall under that. Illness, medication. The S in our acronym is stress. Are you stressed out? Are you bringing the stresses of work, of life, of your relationships into the cockpit? Because they don't belong there. That's when you end up making really irrational and really silly decisions. Are you stressed out? The A is alcohol. I shouldn't have to explain this one too much. It's 8 hours bottle to throttle is the rule of thumb on this one. All right. I shouldn't have to explain that one any further. The F in our acronym is fatigue. My very good friend, does charter operations. A big thing with him is fatigue. Another good friend of mine is an airline pilot. Again, they have mandatory rest periods where they've got to be not thinking about aviation. They've got to be resting, sleeping, whatever it takes for them to catch up. So they don't fall into this fatigue category. And the last bit in our acronym, the E, well, the FAA has the E as emotion. But for me, stress and emotion are like the same things. Do guys even have emotions? I don't think so. So I changed the E to eaten. Have I eaten anything? You ever been out to the airport? You're getting ready to go flying and you got like the jitters, like you're hypoglycemic or something. You don't want to go fly in those sort of conditions, all right? The IMSAFE checklist, guys. Illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, eaten. I'm not asking you to write this out every single flight. I'm asking you to conduct a mental self-evaluation on how you feel, all right? And conduct that IMSAFE checklist. So now I want to quiz you guys. Based on what we just learned, I want to see what kind of where we're at with everything. Let's assume we've already passed the IMSAFE checklist. Everything is good to go. We're flying solo. We're flying the airplane we always fly, and we're flying out of our home-based airport. So I've covered the other three, and I covered the IMSAFE checklist. I really want to see from a hard personal minimum weather standpoint. So I'm going to show you guys a METAR, and I want to know, would you go flying today? Now, if you're not a pilot just yet and you're looking at this going, what on earth is this gibberish? This is a METAR. METAR stands for Routine Surface Observation. This is a language the FAA has created, and we as pilots have to learn it. And again, inside the online ground school, I teach all this stuff, so don't worry if you're already an online ground school member. I'll translate this for you real quick here. This is for Boston. It was prepared on the 18th. I literally just pulled these, so we had very relevant ones here. On the 18th at 23:54 Zulu time, I got to move my control panel so I can see the rest of this. The winds are 270 at 12, 10 statute miles visibility, few clouds at 10,000, temperature -1, dew point -7, altimeter 30.03. My question for you guys, would you go flying today? I'm gonna grab a sip of tea real quick. Let's see. Lots of stuff. Conley, Tim, Jay, a few yeses in there. Absolutely. And again, yes, there is a right or wrong answer, but I don't know where everybody's at in their flying career. You could be an ATP pilot, or you could have never set foot in an airplane before. So your answers are going to be different. I just kind of want to see, where everybody's at. Listen, if this meets your personal minimums, if this meets your hard numbers, you got no problem going flying. My only concern is that wind, the 270 at 12. Somebody asked a good question. I think it was Mike asked, which runway are we using? Again, I don't know the whole runway layout at Boston. I'm sure they have plenty of choices. Winds 270 at 12. Is it a little bit windy? Yeah, it's a little bit windy. The winds aren't gusting. Do these meet my numbers? Yeah, I would go flying. However, it's a little cold for me, not just because I'm a Florida guy, but looking at that temperature, you've got to then begin thinking about freezing levels. And someone, I think it was Tim, very early on wanted me to share more about freezing levels. In order to pick up ice, you've got to have visible moisture. Well, you're going to get visible moisture inside most clouds. You're not going to get visible moisture in beautiful clear skies, which, we have a few layer at 10,000 feet. If I stay under 10,000 feet, yeah, it's going to be a little bit chilly, but I'm not, chances are I'm not going to pick up any ice, but I am going to keep an eye on that temperature. So would Jason, personally go flying today? Yeah, in this case, I would. My personal minimums are met, and that's good. You know what? Everybody may be different, though. My only concern, again, is that wind. Let me rephrase that now. Would I go and would I take a non-flying friend flying this day? 12 knots, guys, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's really like 14, almost 15 miles per hour. That's a little bit bumpy. And if it's blowing 12 on the surface, it's going to be a little bit windier up top. And if you know your area, it could possibly be a little bit bumpy. Let's look at another one. All right. Would you go flying today now? Let me just translate this one for my non-METAR reading people out there. So this is for Los Angeles. On the 18th at 23:53 Zulu, winds 230 at 4, 8 statute miles visibility, few clouds, 1,000 feet, broken clouds at 15,000 feet, temperature 16, dew point 13, altimeter 29.88. Remarks AO2 mean they do have an automatic precipitation discriminator at the field. Would you guys go flying today? That is the question. Let's see. Um, cool. Yeah, Joe, you're spot on. Dan, I agree with you. I agree with a lot of these guys here. Yeah, yeah. Robert, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And again, listen, we're all at different aspects in our flying. It's no big deal. Would I personally go flying? For me, no, I'm not going flying in this situation. And let me tell you why. The winds, that's great. A 230 at 4 might as well be calm. That's a-okay with me. The 8 statute miles gets me a little bit because that is I said 9 statute miles and less, and that is 9 statute miles or less. So the METAR made the decision for me. My numbers are not met, so I'm not going flying. It's just that simple. On top of few clouds at 1,000 feet doesn't help either. I said any clouds under 1,500 feet, I'm not going flying. Why? Because a few layer can quickly become this broken layer down at 1,000 feet. Now you got to realize too, few clouds at 1,000 feet and the visibility is low. I would be willing to bet that few layer is contributing to this low visibility as far as that goes, the 8 statute miles there. So the clouds at 1,000 feet is probably contributing to the visibility. And then think about geographically LAX. Yes, although it's coastal, what if I was flying a little bit more to the east? I'm going to enter into some mountainous territory. Do I want to be goofing around, flying around with mountains and that sort of stuff in 8 statute miles of visibility, trying to operate as, let's say, a VFR pilot? Absolutely not. Again, not exactly my idea of a good time in that case. All right. Let me give you one more, and then we're going to kind of open it up for Q&A and wrap this thing up. Would you go flying today? Let me translate this one for you. This is for Salt Lake City on the 19th, 0001 Zulu. Winds 290 at 6, 1 1/2 statute mile of visibility, haze, few clouds, 500 feet, broken at 1,500 feet, broken at 8,000, overcast at 14,000, temperature -4, dew point -7, altimeter 29.901. Would you go flying if this was your METAR? Yeah, John, you're absolutely right. John says, no way, horrible viz, haze, low clouds, too cold. Paul, I won't read that one, but you're exactly spot on. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Michael, great point. Yeah. I mean, seriously, this is so far from my personal minimums. I'm not going flying this day. This is a good day to jump in the online ground school and watch some videos and learn a thing or two on the ground. This is not a good day to go flying, guys. Listen, 1 1/2 statute miles of visibility in haze. Few clouds 500, broken at 1,500, broken at 8,000, overcast at 14,000. It is just like this hodgepodge cake of cloud layers. I get out of one and there's another one. I get out of another. Even as an IFR, flight, that is not a fun flight to take. On top of, look at the temperature. Temperature -4. What did I say you need to pick up icing? You need visible moisture. Where does visible moisture hang out? Well, it hangs out in clouds. 500 feet, 1,500 feet, 8,000 feet, 14,000 feet. I'm not a big fan of picking up icing. Not my idea of a good time. Flight into known icing conditions in an aircraft without de-icing equipment is prohibited anyways. You're not going flying today on so many counts in that case. So guys, let me really kind of summarize everything for people who maybe jumped in late. Guys, you've got to set smart personal minimums. I want you to have hard set numbers. If you're struggling to come up with these numbers, shoot me an email. Let's talk about it. I'm here for you guys. I want to help you. Let's sit down. Let's help you set up those hard set numbers that you can abide by. And you know what? Let's not only set them, but in 6 months down the road, let's reassess them and see if we can, change them up a little bit to give you a little more freedom as you've added ratings, as you've added more hours and experience, to yourself. Increase those numbers. Those numbers don't decrease on those situations I gave you, but increase those numbers based on the situation. Am I flying with a non-pilot? Am I flying in an unfamiliar area? Am I flying a new airplane? It may be a 172, and I fly a 172 a lot, but it may be a new to me 172, new tail number, different instrumentation, etc. All right. Increase those numbers based on the situation. And guys, conduct the IMSAFE checklist each and every flight. Okay. This is just so important. I'm not asking you to write it out every time. I'm asking you to do an internal evaluation, a self-evaluation each and every flight before you even bother driving out to the airport. Can you pass the IMSAFE checklist? And trust me, it's hard to say no. It is very hard. And I've been to both sides of it. As a student pilot, it's hard to call your flight instructor and say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, but I got to cancel our flight today. I'm just not feeling good. As a flight instructor, back when I was a struggling flight instructor, it stunk because I was counting on that money. I was counting on flying that student. I had booked out that time, and now I have nothing to do for that 2 hours I blocked out. It stinks. But you know what? I've seen both sides of that. Now, as a flight instructor, I have no problem that when someone calls me and says, Jason, I'm just not feeling good, or Jason, I did something stupid. I took in an allergy medicine and now I'm feeling all tired and I don't think we should go flying today. I'm not going to get out a lot. Or Jason, I had a really bad day at work and I don't think we should go flying today. I respect that. And hopefully your instructor will respect that as well. Okay, so conduct that IMSAFE checklist and don't be afraid to execute on it each and every flight. So guys, I hope you really enjoyed this. Again, this is all being recorded. You'll be able to go back and take a look at it again. Also, you'll be able to check out the Secret to Perfect Landings, the webinar we did yesterday. But guys, before I open up for questions, I know there's a lot of new people on the webinar that didn't get to hear my offer yesterday. So I just want to very quickly go through that. Then we're going to open it up for questions. So during these last 2 days, today's one of them, tomorrow's the last day of the Underground Aviation Seminar, I am giving away all my books. The Pass Your Private Pilot CheckRide 2.0 ebook and audiobook, Pass Your Instrument Pilot CheckRide ebook and audiobook, the Secret to Perfect Landings book, my In-Flight Emergencies book, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, the Airplane Flying Handbook, Aviation Acronyms, and the FAR Aim in Plain English. All books total up to a value of $291. I am giving all those books away for free to my online ground school members. Jeff, that's what I was talking about before the webinar. I'm literally giving all those books away to my current online ground school members. Now, if you're not a member, and go to groundschoolacademy.com and become a member either tonight or tomorrow. Literally, what's tomorrow? The 19th? December 19th, you've got to become a member by. And if you do, I'm going to send you all those books totally on the house free for you to dump on your iPad, your Kindle, print them out, read them on your desktop, listen to the audiobooks on your iPhone, whatever. Visit groundschoolacademy.com. Join that #1 rated online ground school. This counts whether you're a Pilots Inner Circle member, PIC member, or whether you're an online ground school gold member. Bronze, silver, gold, doesn't matter. Whatever package you are, you're going to get those books. The Pilots Inner Circle, by the way, is geared towards individuals who are maybe already pilots, but are trying to live out that good pilot is always learning mantra. And again, I operate on the principle of, guys, if you enjoyed this free webinar, I do a webinar like this every Monday night with my online ground school members, from Pilots Inner Circle up to my gold members, okay? So members get, this is what the members get. Inside the online ground school, you get both private and instrument pilot ground schools, over 400 iPad-friendly HD videos, the weekly live webinars I was telling you about, the monthly live mock check rides that I do, the written test prep boot camp, the customized written test prep. You get my CheckRide Secrets video series, private mentorship from myself and other MzeroA.com CFIs, and you get the best guarantee in the industry, which is pass your CheckRide or I'll pay for it. Now with over 1,300 check rides passed and 100% CheckRide pass rate, I'm very proud to say I've never had to redeem that offer with anyone because we have 100% CheckRide pass rate inside the online ground school. So guys, again, you can go to groundschoolacademy.com, sign up. When you sign up, I'll probably send it. I think actually I'll have it all done tonight to send you those books. If you sign up late, I'll send them to you tomorrow so you can get all of those books. So groundschoolacademy.com to get that. Again, the bronze, silver, and gold memberships are for individuals who are learning to fly, wanting to brush up on some stuff. It's both private and instrument pilot ground schools. And the Pilots Inner Circle is a lesser expensive membership, and it is geared towards individuals who are already a pilot but want to kind of stay up to date. On the latest things. They want to jump on the webinars. They want to hear the radio shows. They want to live out that good pilot is always learning mantra. Keep that going. And members earn FAA Wings credits. Wings credits are sort of like CEUs towards renewing your pilot certificate. And the PIC members and all of my ground school members earn those as well. Those are government issued FAA credits, which is a very, very cool thing. So real quick, guys, what I want to do is I want to, last time I unmuted Larry to share some stuff. I want to unmute Larry today to share, because Larry brings so much value with the, not only being a CFI, but being a doctor of pharmacy, to kind of share more about the IMSAFE checklist and about the ground school and how it's all incorporating together. So 1 second here, Larry, I'm going to unmute you. Larry, can you hear me?
Yes, how about you?
Got you loud and clear. You mentioned you want to share some stuff about the IMSAFE checklist. What's happening?
Yeah, well, the first thing about the IMSAFE checklist, I mean, actually, I start that even before they even take their lessons, because I guess I have a prejudice to medications because I've been doing it for 32 years. And so I actually ask the students before they even start, are they on any medications to start with? So then I kind of have a good idea of they're going to have to go through when they first get their medical, but also what kind of side effects they may have. And it also kind of tells me what other comorbidities that they're going to have, like coming in as a diabetic or a hypertensive. So I start that very early. And I know you were talking about personal minimums. I actually start with my personal minimums even before they solo. And so after they solo, I actually call it the instructor minimums for the student. So even when they solo, they actually have a personal contract with me that they're not going to even go up to solo unless they meet their own personal minimums that was put together by me. So that's kind of where it starts. But with the IMSAFE checklist, I always ask myself and the student to think about, are they ill? Do they have headaches? The diabetics with their blood sugar, and like you said, anything like Mexican that they had the night before, I can definitely tell that they're maybe affected in their flying. And so after that, especially with medications, the FAA doesn't even put together a safe medication list, but AOPA does, or I'm sorry, AOPA, me in that. So, everybody always thinks, okay, well, all these prescribed medications by their physician has side effects, but you got to remember there's a whole list of OTCs that are out there, over-the-counter medications, that also have some really side effects that medications people use all the time, like Benadryl is the biggest medication that's actually known to humankind besides all the ulcer medications that are out there. Benadryl's effect actually lasts for 48 hours. And then recently this year, there was even a mention, I think the FAA said there was like 12% of fatal general aviation crashes in the past 10 years were actually due to medications. So that's why I really play a huge role into making sure that my students, if they're on medications, they got to tell me what they are. And if they're not on the right medications, I'm going to help them through their medical exam or get on the right ones. And so then from there, when we go to the S, stress, I mean, everybody's got stress in this work. Are you having a bad day, bad week, bad year? Are the kids driving you nuts? I mean, everything is about money nowadays, so people are stressed over that. Can I pay for my flight lessons? So the S really comes into play really, really quickly. And then with the A, like you said, A for alcohol, actually I do look at anxiety as part of it. And the anxiety can come from simply, have I flown this plane in my past 90 days? Am I flying in a new airplane? You mentioned that is so huge. Am I going to practice a short field somewhere? And the last, did I get enough sleep? I could be anxious just from fatigue going on. That's the F part of it. Then E, I do a little bit about emotion, because especially if they've been depressed, and the economic times in southeastern Michigan really will get you down. But eating is a big thing. I have my little brain foods. I'm always having oatmeal and nuts and blueberries and protein bars, and only 1 cup of coffee, because anything past 1 is going to make me pee a lot. And the last place I want to have to look for is the Porcelain Palace at 3,000 feet. So also I use like 2 other checklists. Actually, I use a PAVE checklist, and that's a little bit, I guess a little more in detail. So it talks about pilot, aircraft, environment, external, and I even go as far, because I'm a checklist fiend, I use a care checklist. I said, what are the consequences of me going flying? What's my alternatives if I get into bad weather, like you mentioned? What's the reality of this flight? Can I really do it? And then the external pressures come up again. The last thing I was going to kind of mention about the online ground school, it's absolutely fantastic. I like when I'm in a hospital, I give my patients choices. Well, can you imagine giving a student, I said, do you want to have like 8 books sitting around you? Do you want to have multiple pieces of paper? Do you want to try and get on the web and look at multiple resources? Or do you want to have something that's put together clearly, concisely, done in the most fantastic way where you learn the best in one place? And then you can go at your own pace. You don't have to say, okay, I'm here in the ground school, and I got to stay here for 2 hours listening to Larry talk about IFR minimums and things like that. So that's why I love it, and it's a required part of my private pilot syllabus. It doesn't say, well, go get the FAA these books. No, it says required. Online ground school and all of your books, period. And I have 100% pass rate too.
I really appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate you sharing kind of a different aspect on the IMSAFE checklist from a professional standpoint, if you know what I mean. So I appreciate it, Larry. Larry, I'm gonna put you back on mute, and if you have to run, Larry, you can. But if you'd like to keep answering questions, you're free to do that as well. Mark and Larry have been very good about helping kind of stay on top of questions, guys. So now I'm kind of moving to the Q&A part of this, and it's easy for me to get behind on questions because they just come up threaded. So, copy your question, like literally, control C it. And so you can paste it again if like in 5 minutes I don't get to your question because I could have missed it. All right. I'm going to start. I'm going to start with some kind words from Matthew. Matthew said, Improv 2 testimonial. There really is good, as he says. Matthew's talking about the online ground school and the webinars. Again, my whole sales pitch on that is, if you like the free videos on YouTube, if you like this free webinar I did just now, the one I did yesterday, if you think the free stuff is good, the paid stuff's even better, and you guys are going to absolutely love that. Again, I encourage you all to go to groundschoolacademy.com. Don't take my word for it. You heard Larry. You've read or heard me say what everyone else is typing in. Check it out. You're going to get all those books. And by the way, those of you who have signed up, Ashley's working on those files, and we're going to get those emailed over to you as well, so you're able to check all of that out as well. So I'm really excited. But those will be emailed to you, so you'll be ready for that. And yeah, Ken, no need to enter a coupon code. It's literally anybody who is a member by tomorrow night is going to get all those books. So it makes it real easy as far as that goes. So once we see you in there, Ken will shoot you that email. Brent said, great job, Jason and crew. Great info, even for a 10-year pilot such as myself. Looking forward to tomorrow's webinar. Well, thank you, Brent. I really appreciate that. Mike, I hope I answered your question there as well. Cool. Mike, hey, Mike said, got to run. Join tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, loving this, so supporting. This is such the right thing to do. Well, Mike, I really appreciate that, man. That really means a lot. Let's see. Lawrence said, on the free books, after downloading books to computer, can I transfer them? Listen, man, once you have those books, my friend, those books are yours, man. If you want to dump them on your iPad, if you want to put them on your Kindle, put them on your Android device, put them on multiple computers, I'm okay with that. I'm a very trusting guy. I'm not worried about you sharing it or anything like that. I am all about creating safer, smarter pilots, guys. That's what I'm all about. And that's the whole purpose of this offer in the first place. So Lawrence, those are yours, my friend. David said, learned a ton from Jason and MzeroA. David, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let's see. Kyle said, just became a member. Thank you, Jason. Kyle, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that, man. That means a lot. Jamil asked, Jason, Larry, Mark, referring to all, he must have talked to everybody so far. Once registered, if we miss any of the webinars on Mondays, we'll have access to the recordings. Yeah, man, everything is recorded. And again, we've been at this for like 3 or 4 years. We've had the Ground School Academy. So you could go back 4 years in time and look at those webinars as well. You get access to so much stuff. So you ever miss one, everything's recorded. We're usually pretty good about getting the recordings up that week for you to check out. It's really good. Good stuff. Jen asked a great question. How do you know when you can update your minimums without falling into the trap of, well, I've survived this kind of situation before, so I should be able to do it again? Jen, you are so ahead of your experience level already, I can tell. Your brain is thinking on a different wavelength, a very, very smart wavelength. And I can tell, Jen, you're probably a very safe, very conservative pilot. And I really appreciate that. Again, my goal is to create safer, smarter pilots. And hopefully we've worked to, to aid in that a little bit, Jen. So, Jen, what I do, again, I'm a very goal-oriented person, Jen. So, you know what, Jen? You could reassess it every year. Like, for example, listen, it's the first of the year now, basically, Jen. So, Jen, what if we set our hard personal minimums now, and every New Year's you come around and you reassess them? And again, I don't know how much flying you do, or you could just do every 50 hours, reassess them, if that's what you want to do. And how do you avoid I don't want to fall into that, I've done it before, I should be able to do it again. Well, when I say lower your personal minimums, Jen, you could go from, okay, I won't go flying if the wind is greater than 10 knots to, okay, I won't go flying if the wind is greater than 11 knots. You could make it that basic, that easy. I'm not saying you got to go like in increments of 5 by any means. Or you know what? Sometimes, Jen, it's just okay leaving your personal minimums how they are. It's based on that past year. If you do the yearly thing, I don't mean to ramble so long on this, Jen, but if you do the yearly thing, look back in your logbook. What did I do? What did I accomplish this year? What did I learn this year, etc.? What experience I get? If you only flew 15 hours last year, I wouldn't be budging your personal minimums anywhere. If anything, I'd be making them more stringent, if you know what I mean. All right, so hopefully that helps. I didn't mean to ramble so long, Jen, if that's the case. Robert asked a great question. Robert said, and guys, if you have a question, it doesn't have to be related to what this webinar was just on. If it's related to airplanes, I will answer the question for you. And I'm going to stay here just like last night until we get every single question answered. And again, Larry, Mark, I appreciate you guys helping. Guys, if you have to roll, I know it's getting late. If you guys have to roll, feel free to do it. I can handle these last 20 or so questions. Robert asked, when flying VFR and making a go or no-go decision, at what point are you concerned with the dew point spread? Dude, you are, again, talk about thinking on a different wavelength. You're super smart already, Robert. I think of an early evening with calm winds as the dew point spread closes in. Well, Robert, you answered your own question. So I am going to emphasize and reiterate what you already know, my friend. We know that a close temperature dew point means poor visibility, low clouds usually. Why? Well, dew point is the temperature at which the moisture in the air becomes visible, right? All right. So a close temperature and dew point typically means visible moisture, fog, haze, low level stuff. All right. Now, Robert, knowing that, if you think back to that LAX METAR we looked at, I believe the temperature was 1.6, the dew point was 1.3. That's kind. I know it's in centigrade, it's in Celsius. That's still kind of close. It's technically only 3 degrees off. And think about the time of day it was. It was kind of like 3-4 p.m.-ish, I believe there. And what's going to happen as night begins to fall and as that temperature begins to drop? The dew point is going to stay the same, my friend. The dew point is going to stay at 1.3, but the outside air temperature is going to drop as the sun goes down. So you need to know, Robert, that, okay, although it's okay now, the temperature is going to drop as the sun goes down. That temperature and that dew point is going to get closer, and we're going to possibly have some poor visibility on our hands, and you need to be thinking like that. Now, I'd be willing to bet, Robert, wake up tomorrow and look at the LAX METAR, and I bet you there'll be fog. I bet you there'll be haze. I bet you there'll be some. I haven't looked at a TAF or anything like that. I'm not, predicting the future here. But just knowing that temperature is dropping, I bet there's going to be stinky visibility in SoCal tomorrow, based on what I just told you. All right, and we can tell that from the temperature and the dew point. All right, you follow me? So Robert, again, you're thinking on the same kind of wavelength. A ton more questions coming here. I got a lot to catch up on, guys. If I'm on Everything's timestamped here. So I'm on, Robert's question was asked at 10:08. It's currently 10:16. So I'm a little bit behind, but I'm catching up. So don't worry. Cool. Chris said, great information for aspiring CFI. I really liked Larry's use of checklists for him as his students during solo flight. Great stuff. Chris, I'm so glad you're enjoying that, man. Let's see. Mike, hey, Mike asked any way you could do a webinar on classes of airspace and VOR navigation. Mike, I literally, on Monday, did with my online ground school members. It's funny you bring that up. With my online ground school members, I did a webinar. We took out the sectional chart and we went over all different types of airspace. Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and certainly the different types of echo airspace, how they look on a sectional chart, what they mean to you, etc. So we did all that stuff. Will I do that as a free public webinar? Probably not, man. I have some free videos on some basic airspace stuff. I have a great video on VOR navigation that's out there. But most of that stuff I save to share with my online ground school members. I love those guys and gals, and I want to give them the best content possible. So there's tons of videos on it in the ground school. There's tons of webinars that I've done on it in the ground school. A lot of times the ground school members request webinars, and I do the webinars, for them that way. So will I do a public free one about that? Probably not, man. I just gotta be honest with you. I do have more free public webinars planned for 2014 on some various topics. They'll be coming out, so hopefully that'll help you. But Michael, dig around YouTube. I do have some free videos out there as well. You can check out as well. Bill had a question about the Pilots Inner Circle, the PIC. He said no videos on the PIC. Yeah. So the Pilots Inner Circle, Bill, you get access to the webinars every Monday night and the recordings, and you get access to my radio program that I do every Monday at 3 via audio. And that's how you earn the wings credits as well. So the Pilots Inner Circle is geared towards people who are already pilots. If you are already a pilot, because we know that certificate is simply just a license to learn, all right? And how can we better keep learning? Well, if you know there's a webinar every Monday night and you can be there or you can watch the recording, if there's an audio that's going to get instantly downloaded to your Android or your iPhone device so you can listen to it on your commute to work, so you can live out that good pilot is always learning mantra. That's what the Pilots Inner Circle is geared toward. You have to become a bronze, silver, or gold member to get access to the videos. But regardless of what membership you sign up for, Bill, assuming you do it before Thursday, tomorrow, you'll get all 8 of those books, like I was telling you. So that's that. Philip asked, are the books available for Droid? Absolutely. The books are literally just a PDF, man. So they'll open on anything. I mean, I'm assuming you open PDFs on your Droid and everything else. Very, very easy. There's nothing technical about it. So that's that. Chris said, great job and thanks for continuing to be a great ambassador for general aviation. Chris, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let's see. David said, I wish you were in Michigan or I was in OCALA. Would definitely have you as my instructor. Of your dance card's not so full, which I'm sure it is. We're pretty busy. You're passionate instructor, and that's great. I appreciate that. David, who you need to hook up with is Larry. Larry is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. You want to talk about a guy who's passionate about aviation? If you'd like, shoot me an email if Larry hasn't already hooked up with you, and I'll get you Larry's information. Let's see. Robert, this is a great point. Robert J. asked this question. What if a CFI says you're okay to go, but the student pilot disagrees based on the weather, the aircraft, etc.? Robert, this is a terrible conundrum in aviation, and it happens, man. It's like peer pressure back in high school kind of stuff. Your instructor says, no, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it, man. Just go. But you don't feel confident. The current weather exceeds your personal minimums. You, my friend, are the pilot in command, and you've got to step up and take action on that. Put your foot down and say no, and that's very hard to do sometimes. Quick little side note, and when I was 18 years old, I was a commercial pilot. My very first flying job was I was the traffic pilot for the city of Jacksonville. Literally, I flew the beltway around Jacksonville and reported traffic accidents. I was a poor, starving college student. Flying was my only means of income. And trust me, when we had bad weather days, there was a lot of times where I'm thinking, man, I've got to put food on the table. My rent is due, and it's been solid IFR for 4 days. I haven't been able to fly. That is very hard to say, no, I can't go flying today because my personal minimums are exceeded, especially when someone's paying you money. Um, the hardest part about becoming a commercial pilot is learning that, how to say no. And that's very, very tough. I know we're not talking about commercial pilot stuff, Robert, but just to give you an analogy of how I've dealt with that, it's very, very hard to say no back when I was a starving college student. So that's that. Let's see, Terry. Hey, Terry. Terry asked, are the books available as hard copies? Yes, Terry. I do sell the books as hard copies via Amazon. However, for this Ground School Academy deal, what I'll be sending over is the ebooks. Just about everybody has a tablet of some sort, a phone they can read them on. Most of the books are audiobooks, and a lot of them have videos in them anyways. They're very multimedia based. Listen, I know a lot of people that just like paperbacks. So you can buy them through Amazon as a paperback, but if you sign up to the groundschoolacademy.com and do that deal, the books are going to be an ebook. They're not going to be paperbacks. So check that out. Jamil, yeah, absolutely, man. Excited to have you on board, my friend. That's exciting. Adam asked a great question. How often should I go flying? My teachers tell me to fly a few times a week. Is this true? Adam, this is such a great question. And listen, a few times a week, your instructor is correct. In this case. And let me tell you why. All right. I was, again, I've shared my story. I was a poor, starving college student. I couldn't afford to go flying a lot. And here's an instructor telling me, no, Jason, I need you to fly at least once a week, at least twice a week sometimes. I'm thinking, I can't afford to fly twice a week. It's too expensive. But you know what? If you end up flying, less than once a week, every 10 days or something, you end up spending more money that way over the long haul because you drug your training out. Because there's so much time between lessons, you spent more time recapping what you learned last lesson and catching you back up, that you end up dragging it out and spending more time. Students who drag out their lessons and fly less frequently end up being higher time students, which in turn costs more money. Students who fly at least twice per week finish their pilot certificate sooner and end up saving more money. I kid you not. Listen, I'm not an instructor who instructs, for the money. I'm an instructor who instructs for the love of aviation. So I can give that advice to you very honestly. Plus, I'm not flying with you, so I can give you that advice honestly. 2 is perfect, man. Twice a week, much more than that. I mean, I've had students do it successfully, but 2 is the magic number. 1 is okay even as well. 1's my minimum, but 2 is where I'd really like to see you. Twice a week. This is why I tell students as well. Listen, there are 2 things that hold you back in your flying. It's time and money. Sometimes it's both, and that really stinks. But you either have the time and you don't have the money, or you have the money and you don't have the time. All right? If money's going to be an issue, I encourage you to set aside a few $1,000s and use that so you can take your lessons twice a week. All right? Just some advice, and maybe some other people can chime in on that their success and their, again, if I could do my flight training over, I would have flown more often. I would have done twice a week. Just my opinion there. Paul asked a great question. How do you factor in future weather, like 1 to 2 days out? Paul, listen, this is going to sound very primitive, but I see Larry gave you some advice here too. I usually try to start on the basic weather sites. You ever been on wonderground.com? Larry mentioned the same website. Look at the 10-day forecast, look at the 3-day out forecast, etc., and check that sort of stuff out. There's nothing wrong with that. Once you're in the times where you can check a TAF out, check the TAF out as well, my friend. So absolutely, check that sort of stuff out, man. Let's see, Will, I'll just read a quick little bits of Will's here. So glad you joined this group. It's been such a blessing for me. Will, thank you so much, man. That means a lot. Um, let's see. Um, Tim, hey, Tim. Tim asked a great question, just like he did last webinar. How important is it? How important is destination info, METAR, on go, no-go decisions when deciding on changing conditions for a long cross country? Not only is the destination important for me, Tim, but along the route is important. You know what? My airport may be beautiful, Tim. Let's do, we're leaving OCALA and we're going to Tallahassee, let's say. OCALA may be beautiful, Tim, but there's a cold front pushing through. It's just outside of Tallahassee, and the weather's going to be stinky for quite some time. Although the weather's beautiful in OCALA, I'm not going flying to Tallahassee. I'll go flying, but not to Tallahassee. I'm going somewhere else. Again, I try to teach guys, you never have to be anywhere in aviation. You never have to be anywhere. If it's a business meeting, you're like, man, this guy's really expecting me to be there, you better have a plan to drive as well. And I'm that serious with it. And that being said, you better make your go or no go decision a few hours earlier, because if you have to drive, it's going to take you those few more hours to get there. So you're going to be making a go or no go decision 2 or 3 hours before your actual scheduled departure time. Always have a backup plan, my friend, because the destination airport has got to meet my personal minimums as well. Let's see. Conley asked a great question. As a certificate holder, what do you offer as far as training and piloting skills? Conley, listen, you're already a pilot. Awesome. Congratulations. Again, if you're looking into something like the Pilot's Inner Circle, that whole goal of the Pilot's Inner Circle is to keep you learning everything, man, because you know what? For your check ride, you are probably an airspace expert. You knew all about the 7 different types of Class Echo airspace. You were a pro on the radios and getting flight following. But you know what? Sometimes things like that get a little bit dusty. I want to jump in on a webinar and rehash about airspace. Go over how to properly talk on the radios and go over all that sort of stuff and keep you fresh. I want to keep you up to date on everything. Inside the Ground School Academy, we have a full iPad training module where I show you which apps I use, how I use them in the cockpit, etc., their features, etc. So you can see all that stuff. I show you demos of all the major ForeFlight, FlyQ, Garmin Pilot, etc., so you guys can check all that stuff out. I want to keep you abreast on the latest and greatest technologies in aviation as well. So that's what that's really geared towards. So hopefully that helps. Sean asked a great question. Any tips on how to deal with the compromise between deteriorating airwork skills and hour building? Trying to build some commercial pilot hours, but know the basic stuff is being compromised. Yeah, Sean, it's so funny you say that. When I became a private pilot and I started working on my instrument, in instrument flying, you don't ever do any landings. You do one landing, but everything else is you go missed and you go around and you shoot and approach again. When I was working on my instrument rating, my landings became garbage because I wasn't landing the airplane at all. And then I went to my commercial pilot certificate and I had to improve my landings. But through my commercial pilot, I was back to doing all VFR stuff. So then I hadn't shot an approach in months. Then my instrument approach just suffered. There's a fine line and a fine balance between everything, man. I know if you're doing it part 61, you're trying to build that 250 hours total time. Find a great friend at the airport who you can split that time with, number one, from a financial standpoint. And he or she is going to bring some different experiences, some different stories, and some different atmosphere to the cockpit that you guys can go share on some long cross countries. Learn how to work as a team in the cockpit. One is the talking pilot, one is the flying pilot, and switch that role after lunch on the flight back. Shoot an instrument approach back in to keep yourself up to date. Do a few laps around the pattern. Stay on top of that sort of stuff because like you said, if you just go out hour building, just goofing around the practice area, your skills will deteriorate. Chair flying is one of the best things you can do, my friend. So stay on top of that sort of stuff. That's really, really going to help you, with that. Rod, yeah, everything's being updated right now, but you can purchase hard copies of the books there. Or if you just go on Amazon.com and type in Jason Schappert or type in MzeroA or type in any of the book titles you want, you can purchase the hard copy. Those are paperbacks only there. If you want the ebooks, you can get them on MzeroA.com, or like you said, I'm going to send them all to you right now, or to my Ground School Academy members, my online Ground School members in there. So that is that is that. Absolutely, Wade. Cool, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Jen, I'm just now getting to your thank you comment. And again, I'm kind of falling behind here, guys. So I'm trying to stay on top of this sort of stuff. Jay asks, Jason, will you ever do a similar webinar for IFR decision making? Yeah, Jay, I just might do that. I might do that as a 2014 kind of webinar. I think that'd be smart. We've created so many great, pilots, that are now becoming instrument pilots. It only makes sense to start to work towards that, that aspect of it. So very, very cool stuff here. Let's see. Conley asks, what do you suggest that will help a person make better weather-related decisions or just understanding weather? The flight school where we are, at least me, robots interpreting the weather. Yeah, I understand, but it doesn't help truly understand what really goes on in the skies. Yeah, Conley, again, I would consider joining the ground school, man. Even if you just jump in there for a month and check everything out. We have 2 huge weather modules. One is on textual weather, reading the weather, and the other one is on understanding the weather. Just like I was explaining about that close temperature and dew point. Little things like that you learn, and little things like that stick with you and help you make those smart go and no-go decisions down the road, if you're following me with that. Even if you just jump in for a month to help you focus on weather and know that's where you're weak and you want to work on that. I would go that route. And then, by the way, on top of that, you get all 8 books for free as well. So very, very cool on top of that sort of stuff. So very, very cool. Very, very cool. Let's see. Nick, very, very great question. I should have brought this up. Nick asked, what are your nighttime minimums? Whew. Nick, you are so spot on. It's as if you know me, Nick, because I am not crazy about flying at night. Flying at night limits me on my ways out, if you know what I mean. If I had an engine out, I'm very limited as to where I'm going. Basically, Nick, for night flying, I want the conditions just about perfect. I really don't want any clouds in the sky because clouds are real hard to spot at night. And anyone who's ever done any VFR flying at night knows, you've inadvertently flown into a cloud or anything like that. You know what I'm dealing with, what I'm talking about here. Night conditions, I basically want darn perfect conditions, man. Night flying is a different animal. And I literally, I could go on and on about that, but very, very good question, Nick, with that. David, great question. David asks, any rules of thumb for low time pilots buying an airplane? Trained in a 152, looking at a Cessna Cardinal as my first plane, totally different plane. What's a good rule of thumb in training or looking for that new plane? Listen, get as much experience in as many different aircraft as you can, David. First off, a Cardinal is a great airplane, a very, very roomy airplane. There's nothing wrong with that. Go out and find one and fly it with somebody. Fly a 172. Check out the low wing market, the Piper market, etc. Check all that sort of stuff out and look at that. Fly as many aircraft as you can. Nothing is cooler, David. And what I suggest most people to do that want to buy an airplane, get your private pilot in the flight school's airplane. Learn to fly in the flight school's airplane. Then if you want to buy an airplane, buy it after you're a private pilot because you won't be able to get insurance as a student pilot on your own airplane. You have to put an instructor in there. And then once you become a private pilot, insurance becomes a lot easier and a whole lot cheaper. And then get your instrument rating in your own airplane. Nothing is cooler than becoming an IFR pilot in your own airplane. So that's very, very neat. Rules of thumb on that, man. Again, fly as many different aircraft as you can. And then when it comes down to the actual specs and that sort of stuff, David, you and I can sit down one day. I can talk to you all about, engine times, airframe times, avionics, paint, interior, that sort of stuff. I did a talk a long time ago on buying an airplane at Sun and Fun. I have that video somewhere. I might be able to dig up for you, David, so you can watch all of that. Philip asks if these slides are going to be available for download. Yeah, Philip, I'm gonna do that, but they're going to be inside the online ground school. That's where I'm gonna put them as far as that goes. But this will go up on YouTube and everything else, so you'd be able to check that out. The slides, most of them are kind of one thought little things as well. So hopefully you're taking some good notes. And again, I'll email you the recording, Philip, so you'll be able to go back and check that sort of stuff out. Let's see. Moses asked, in regards to a medical, would it keep him from flying in general? Moses wants to do some aerobatic stuff eventually too. Moses, you've got to be able to pass a third-class medical. If not, we're talking sport pilot sort of stuff, which will allow you to fly with your driver's license, but that doesn't allow, light sports a totally different ball game as far as that. If you have questions on that, I can hook you up with Larry a little bit more, and he can help you a little bit better with your medical related questions. Taking some more questions here. Cool. Ken said, just became a member. Can I save the webinars to view later? Absolutely, Ken. Absolutely, you can do that. Let's see. Awesome. Let's see. Continuing to work through this. Will, I'm going to save that thought. I'm going to bring that up a little bit later because we have some big changes coming to that. So that will be cool. Let's see. Continuing to look. Mike said his CHECKRIDE 2-hour flight from home. Yeah, Mike, sometimes it's tough to find these examiners, but he said his CHECKRIDE 2-hour flight from home exceeded his wind personal minimums. Very stressful to say yes or no. Isn't that such a tough spot to find yourself in, Mike? I want to get this CHECKRIDE done, but it exceeds my personal minimums. By saying yes, I'm going to have a really tough CHECKRIDE because it's windy. But by saying no, I'm not going to get to my CHECKRIDE, but maybe it'll look good that I made an executive decision, for my, examiner. So there's that sort of thought process as well. So let's see, continuing to look through some stuff here. Adam P. asked a good question. Would you recommend low-time students to fly with an iPad? Adam, without defining low time, I'm going to say, I'm going to define low time, Adam, as pre-solo. I'm going to define low time as having pre-solo and hasn't started cross countries yet. And I would say no. I don't want my student pilots with an iPad basically before they solo, because before you solo, man, we're working on landings, we're working on steep turns, slow flight stalls, etc. When we get into cross countries, I'll kind of slowly introduce it, or I'll use the iPad and kind of show you what I'm doing with it. But first and foremost, Adam, I want you to learn how to fly the old-fashioned way. I don't want you to become so spoiled with technology, because what could happen on a CHECKRIDE is that examiner could say, okay, Adam, cool, let me see that iPad, turn it off and put it on the back seat. And now you're going, what do I do now? Well, if you learned how to navigate the old-fashioned way, you've got that to fall back on. The iPad is a great tool. However, it should never be a crutch in the cockpit. The iPad should always be a backup to some other means of navigation that you have going on, aka pilotage and dead reckoning. If you're following me with that. Also, low-time student pilots don't need an iPad off the bat because it's going to cause too much head in the cockpit time. I want you as a low-time student pilot looking outside the cockpit, learning how to slice the nose across those horizons, across the horizon on your steep turns. I don't want your head in the cockpit. I want you looking outside. So until we start talking cross countries, do we start talking iPad? And even then, it's very minimal. Sorry to ramble, but hopefully that makes sense. Jamil asked, Jason, in risk management, we usually look at the likelihood of occurrence of that risk combined with the consequence to come up in the rating of that risk. I guess this applies to risk assessment, decision making, and aviation as well. Yeah, man, you are exactly right. Again, everything is a chain of events. What is this one action? If I say yeah, let's go back to who was it? Mike talk about his check ride. It was a little bit windy. Do I go or do I not go? Well, you got to assess the risk on that. Every situation, whether you say yes or no, you can play out the possible scenarios based on that decision. And hopefully we make the right one. I think you're exactly right with that. Chris asked a great question. What's your favorite iPad app, ForeFlight, FlyQ, etc.? Chris, I'm going to leave you with a cliffhanger. What I want you to do is I want you to go to digitalflying.com, digitalflying.com, and download my free book on how I use an iPad in the cockpit, which apps I use, how I use them, how I mount the iPad in the cockpit, etc. digitalflying.com. And that'll answer all your questions there. Mike said, Mike, it looks like they already got your question there, the 24 calendar months. Let's see. Yeah, Ken, totally understand your reference there. Sean, so excited to have you inside the online ground school. Very excited about that. Let's see, continuing on, reading some stuff. Gary asked, Jason, are you working on a farm in plain English for IFR? Am I currently working on it? The answer is no. Am I going to have one out soon? The answer is yes. What is soon? I'm going to have it out before the middle of next year. I know that may not sound totally exciting, but that sort of stuff takes time. We've got a lot of irons in the fire right now, but that is certainly something I'm, although not actively working on it now, it's certainly on the to-do list and to-do very soon list, Gary, because the VFR book is such a bestseller. IFR would make logical sense there. So, Chris, thank you for that, man. I appreciate that. And you can go to that groundschoolacademy.com to check out all those prices as far as that sort of stuff goes. Sean asked one more question. I'm from Australia. Would it be a disadvantage in reading, learning content prepared on the U.S. skies in the Ground School Academy? Sean, listen, my friend, we have students from all over the world, South Africa, Europe, etc. We have a few students from Australia. And this is the thing, man. The only thing you're going to find different, this is geared towards FAA. So I'm assuming you're doing a license that's not FAA, although you could do an FAA license over in Australia. We have students that do that. You're going to do the Australian equivalent over there. The only thing that's going to change, my friend, is the regulations. The raw skill of flying stays the same. Principles of weather stay the same. Aerodynamics stay the same. The only thing that's different is going to be the regulations. And what you're going to find is the regulations, oddly enough, are not that different between here and there. A few numbers here and there, but that's really about it. The regulations are very, very close to standard across FAA, JAA, CAA, etc. So that is that. Let's see. Terry asked a great question. Jason, how many wings credits does a sport pilot need to deter a flight review for 1 year? Well, Terry, one thing you got to understand is there's different types of wings credits. There's basic, advanced, and master credits, and each of those credits differ as far as that goes. So it depends on what type of credits you earn. However, Terry, assuming you join the Pilots Inner Circle, as you earn those wings credits, they continue to push your flight review back further and further and further as we begin to redeem those. You'll be able to see that when you log in on FAAsafety.gov. It'll begin pushing it back as that happens because of the Pilots in a Circle, because of those wings credits you're actually earning. So although there's not a set number, it's a continuing process because we issue various basic, advanced, and master credits based on the actions you take and the things you do. So it varies. But you'll push it back within the time frame. That's absolutely, not an issue as well. So, guys, we're kind of getting down to the end question-wise. So, if you have a question, now is the time to answer them. I only see a few more as far as that goes. Connolly said, thank you for bringing that up, talking about the iPad stuff. Too many pilots are becoming button pushers rather than real pilots. Nothing in learning technology, but learn how to fly also. Yeah, Connolly, you're exactly right. I don't like head down time in VFR flying. I want you to learn how to fly the old-fashioned way, and then we'll bring in the technology. Listen, I love technology. I fly with an iPad mini. I got my iPad mini right next to me right now. It's attached to me practically, and I fly with it everywhere. But it's a backup to a current system, a current navigation system I already have going on as far as that sort of stuff goes. Eric, I don't have an answer to that question just yet, but shoot me an email. We'll talk a little bit further about that. He had some questions about flying in Central America and learning their processes and their regulations. I'd have to do some research on that for you, Eric, and I can. So shoot me an email so I remember, Eric, and then I'll do some research for you. It's just jason@MzeroA.com. You can send me an email, guys. I don't have any more questions in the question bank. I'm assuming we're done with questions. If you have one, now's the time to ask it, or forever hold your peace. Well, at least till tomorrow when we do a Q&A session again. You'll be laying in bed and have one more question as far as that goes. So cool, Gary. Thank you. I appreciate that. So guys, listen, tomorrow we're doing the same thing. Well, we're doing an in-flight emergencies webinar. You will not want to miss tomorrow. If you're not signed up, you need to get signed up, undergroundaviationseminar.com to sign up. I'm going to do my best to send you this recording tomorrow, so you guys will be able to check all that sort of stuff out as far as that goes. I'll be sending you an email about that. So guys, I am going to call it a night. Guys, thank you so much for all you guys do. You guys are just such a huge blessing to myself, my beautiful wife, and this wonderful business. You guys are the reason we have such a wonderful business. Anything we can do to make you guys safer, smarter pilots, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. Guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you tomorrow for our grand finale of the Underground Aviation Seminar. In the meantime, go to groundschoolacademy.com, become a member to get all those benefits, those 8 free books. Check that out. Check out that website. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And most importantly, remember that a good pilot is always learning. Have a great night, guys. See ya.